my mom, she had jobs at Burger King and Wendy's, so it was like that, and supporting like me and my 5 brothers. Not the best of situations, of course. She came to a point where she couldn't really take care of us anymore, and immediately, like, my brothers went to live with my dad, and I went to live with a family. I started seeing a counselor through family services, and the counselor, like, it was when I was in middle school, the first session that I had with Tina, she was trying to get me to talk, and I wouldn't really. And I remember like being frustrated and not really liking her at first because she made me talk, but like during our first session she was getting frustrated that I wouldn't say anything, and like all I would do is shrug.
I met Susan in the school-based counseling program. My first memory of her is a counseling session we had at the school. She was really, I think at that time, for me, it was obvious that she'd been traumatized in some way, because she just came into the room, sat down, very little eye contact, not much to say. So drawing her out was a really big part of our first year. By the end of that year, her foster family asked her to leave. And I always had this sense when I was working with Susan that there's a lot that I don't know, like that. She comes in and says, they're not going to let me stay there any longer. And I knew there'd been some disagreements and that it wasn't a perfect family, but I didn't anticipate that they were going to ask her to leave.
Like in working with Tina and having like family services in and out of the home on different occasions, that kind of helped me to be able to talk a little bit more.
Susan was living with her dad. They all lived in a home together for about 2 years. During this time, there was some abuse.
It really is pretty complicated, and there have just been a lot of people that have stepped in at exactly the right times, and so that's been kind of cool. So it's kind of hard to explain. We lived in the projects until I was like 8 years old. Like even while we were there were still like things going on that like shouldn't have been going on.
Also during that time, Susan was working at Salvation Army. I think the Salvation and the Army are intertwined, and so she did a lot of volunteer work in those groups. And in those groups, she met this family that she currently lives with.
Our youngest son gave Susie his room. He said, Susie's a girl, she needs a room by herself. So he gave her his room when she came with it. This was in the May before we moved, when everything started happening. And I said, now Susie, there's plenty to eat in the refrigerator, you help yourself, and I'll be back. It would be like about 8 o'clock that everybody would be home. And I came back, and she hadn't moved out of her room. I said, well, Susie, what did you have for dinner? She goes, well, when I go to school at breakfast time, I would always get an extra piece of fruit. And then when I would go home, I would just then stay in my room, and I would have my fruit for dinner because I wouldn't want to go downstairs. She is just transformed. And that is so true. And Tina would know. Tina saw her from this girl who was very closed and pulled in, and the shrugging of the shoulders. She would never look at anybody. How God has just absolutely transformed her in these last few years. Not that he would have wanted all the other things to happen. That is not from God. That's just evil in this world. We can't explain all that. But I said to Susie, there was always something inside of you. There was always something there that you always wanted something better. And I said, and you always had that within you.
When she got into college, we got another program called Educational Assistance Fund, and she's the perfect example of one of those kids who could get loans for the tuition, but didn't have money for anything else. Clothes, cell phone, computer, any of the things that kids need for college. So she has gotten annual grants from our program for that.
giving financially to enable. I know that one of the things that Family Service has done through the chairman is that he has helped to raise money for Susie and other children like Susie who have that, who don't have like family support, all the family support, financial support for college. And that has been so key